The house was a fixer-upper, but it was mine. At 38, I clawed my way out of a dead-end job and a breakup that left me sleeping on a friend's couch for 6 months. The place was in a quiet suburb outside Raleigh, North Carolina. Split-level, faded yellow siding, a backyard with a sagging fence. I liked the idea of starting over somewhere nobody knew my name. The neighbors seemed nice enough at first. Older couples mostly, a few young families. They waved when I moved in, offered to help with boxes. I thought I'd landed in one of those rare pockets of the world where people still left their doors unlocked. That lasted about a month. Then I met Carl Whitaker. He lived in the ranch-style house to my right, the one with the pristine lawn and a flagpole that flew a different flag every week. Carl was in his late 50s, wiry, with a buzz cut that screamed ex-cop or military. He introduced himself while I was watering the patchy grass in my front yard. "You're the new guy, huh?" he said, leaning over the low hedge that separated our properties. His smile was tight, like he was sizing me up for a fight. "Hope you're not one of those loud types. We keep things orderly around here." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "Just me and my coffee maker," I said. He didn't laugh back. Things were fine for a while. I settled into my routine, freelance graphic design, mostly logos and websites for small businesses. I worked from the dining room, which had a big bay window facing Carl's place. I liked the light it let in, the way it made the space feel open. But one evening, while I was microwaving leftovers, I noticed something off. A faint green glow, steady, coming from the corner of Carl's garage. I stepped outside to check. There, mounted just under the eaves, was a security camera. Its lens was angled directly at my dining room window. I stood there, hands in my pockets, trying to convince myself I was seeing it wrong. Maybe it was pointed at his driveway or the street. But the angle was unmistakable. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I thought about knocking on his door right then, but it was late, and I didn't want to come off as paranoid. Instead, I went back inside, closed the blinds, and spent the rest of the night Googling local laws. Turns out, in North Carolina, it's not illegal to point a camera at someone's house as long as it's on your own property and not capturing audio or private spaces like bedrooms. Shady, but legal. I decided to let it slide for now. Maybe it was just Carl being overcautious. The next morning, I saw him outside, polishing the chrome on his pickup truck. I waved, kept it casual. "Hey, Carl, notice your new camera. Looks high-tech." He straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag. "Gotta keep an eye on things," he said. "Never know who's sneaking around." I nodded, then took a chance. "Seems like it's pointed at my place. Any chance you could tilt it a bit?" His eyes narrowed, just for a second. "If you're not doing anything wrong, what's it matter?" he said, then turned back to his truck. I stood there, feeling like I'd been slapped. It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them, like he was daring me to push back. I didn't. Not that day. I went inside, tried to focus on a client's website mock-up, but I kept glancing at the blinds. I felt exposed, like I was being watched every time I grabbed a glass of water or scratched my head. That night, I taped a piece of cardboard over the dining room window. It helped, but not much. Over the next week, I started noticing more things. Carl's truck would idle in his driveway at odd hours, sometimes 2 a.m., engine rumbling just loud enough to wake me. Once I caught him standing at the hedge, staring at my house, not moving. When he saw me looking, he waved like it was nothing and walked away. I started keeping a log. Just a Google Doc at first, dates, times, what I saw. October 12th, 9:47 p.m., Carl's truck idling for 15 minutes. October 14th, 7:22 a.m., Carl staring at my front door from his yard. It felt silly, but also felt necessary. I wasn't imagining this. He was testing me, seeing how far he could go. I thought about confronting him again, but something about his demeanor, the way he carried himself, like he was always one step ahead, made me hesitate. Instead, I ordered a cheap security camera online. Just one, to cover my front porch. If he was going to watch me, I'd watch him back. The camera arrived a few days later. I set it up on a Saturday afternoon, angling it to catch my porch in part of the street. Carl was outside when I was installing it, hosing down his driveway. He didn't say anything, but I could feel his eyes on me the whole time. That night, I checked the footage. Nothing unusual, just a stray cat and a delivery guy dropping off a package. But at 3:14 a.m., the motion sensor triggered. I opened the app, expecting another animal. Instead, it was Carl. He was standing at the edge of my lawn, right where my property met his, staring at the camera. He didn't move for a full minute. Then he stepped back into his yard and disappeared. I didn't sleep after that. I sat on the couch, lights off, watching the live feed like it was a horror movie. My hands were clammy, my stomach knotted. This wasn't just a nosy neighbor. This was something else. The next day, I went to the hardware store and bought 2 more cameras, one for the backyard, one for the side of the house. I wasn't playing anymore. If Carl wanted to make this a game, I'd play to win. By the end of the month, my house looked like a low-budget surveillance hub. 3 cameras, all recording 24/7, feeding to an app on my phone. I felt safer, but not safe. Carl's camera was still there, still pointed at my dining room. I'd started working from the kitchen instead, away from the windows, but it didn't stop the feeling of being watched. I'd catch myself double-checking locks, peeking through the blinds before bed. My log was growing. More idling trucks, more late-night stares. Once, I swear I saw him take a photo of my car from his porch. I decided to try talking to him one more time. I waited until he was outside, raking leaves. Kept it friendly, neighborly. "Carl, I'm not trying to start anything, but your camera is making me uncomfortable. I'd really appreciate it if you could adjust it." He stopped raking, leaned on the handle, and looked at me like I was a kid who just mouthed off. "You got cameras now, too?" he said. "What's the difference?" I swallowed hard. "Mine aren't pointed at your house." He smirked just a little. "Maybe they should be." Then he went back to raking. That was the moment I knew talking wouldn't fix this. Carl wasn't clueless or eccentric. He was deliberate. I went inside, added the conversation to my log, and started researching. I posted on a local forum, keeping it vague. Anyone deal with a neighbor pointing a camera at their house? Most replies were useless. Move, ignore it, talk to them. But one caught my eye. A user named Triangle Gardener said they'd had a similar issue years ago. Their neighbor turned out to be a retired security guard with a grudge. They suggested documenting everything and checking if the HOA could step in. I didn't have an HOA, but the advice stuck. Keep records. Build a case. I started digging deeper. Looked up Carl's name online, cross-referenced property records. Found out he'd owned the house for 15 years. Lived alone since his wife passed a decade ago. Nothing alarming at first, but then I stumbled on a blog post from a neighborhood watch group in a nearby town. It mentioned a Carl W., who'd been asked to step down after installing unauthorized cameras around a park. No charges, just a warning. The post was old, but it set off alarms in my head. Was this the same guy? I saved the link, added it to my notes. Then things got weirder. One morning, I found my mailbox open, letters scattered on the ground. Could have been kids or wind, but it didn't feel random. 2 days later, my trash cans were knocked over, bags ripped open. I checked my cameras. Nothing clear, just a shadow moving near the curb at 4 a.m. I started to feel like I was living in a trap, like Carl was tightening a noose I couldn't see. I upgraded my cameras to ones with night vision, added a motion-activated floodlight. Every time it clicked on, my heart jumped, but it was usually just a raccoon or the neighbor's dog. I was at my desk one afternoon, tweaking a logo, when I got a notification from the front camera. I opened the app. Carl was on my porch. Not knocking, not delivering a package, just standing there, hands behind his back, looking at the door. He stayed for 20 seconds, then walked back to his house. I rewatched the clip 3 times, zooming in. His face was blank, unreadable. I saved the footage, time-stamped it, added it to the log. That night, I barely slept, kept checking the feeds. At 2:47 a.m., the backyard camera caught him again. This time, he was at the fence, peering into my yard. He didn't cross the line, just stood there, watching. I called a friend the next day, someone I'd known since college who worked as a paralegal. I told her everything: cameras, stairs, mailbox, trash. She listened quietly, then said, "You need to assume he's dangerous. Document every second, but don't confront him again." People like that thrive on reaction. She offered to connect me with a lawyer she knew, just to talk options. I said I'd think about it. I wasn't ready to escalate that far. Not yet, but Carl was escalating. One evening, I was grilling burgers in the backyard when I heard a low hum, like a drone. I looked up, saw nothing but stars. The sound faded, then came back louder. I grabbed my phone, started recording. There was a small black drone hovering just above my fence. It dipped low, circled my yard, then zipped back toward Carl's house. I couldn't prove it was his, but who else? I added it to the log. November 3rd, 7:19 p.m., drone over backyard, likely from Carl's property. I started to feel like I was losing my grip. Work was slipping. Clients were emailing about missed deadlines. I'd forget to eat, spend hours reviewing footage instead of designing. My house didn't feel like mine anymore. It was a battlefield, and Carl was winning without saying a word. I bought blackout curtains, covered every window. It helped, but not enough. I'd still catch myself listening for his truck, waiting for the next move. Then came the package. It was on my porch one morning, no label, no return address. Just a plain brown box, taped shut. I didn't touch it at first, called a non-emergency police line instead. They sent an officer, a bored guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He opened the box with gloves. Inside was a single photo printed on cheap paper. It was me, sitting at my dining room table, laptop open, taken from outside, through the bay window, before I'd put up the cardboard. The officer shrugged. Could be a prank. No triats, no crime. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded, took the photo, added it to my evidence folder. I stopped going outside unless I had to. No more grilling, no more watering the lawn. I ordered groceries online, worked with the lights dimmed. My log was a novel now. Pages of timestamps, screenshots, descriptions. I sent it all to the lawyer my friend recommended. He called me back the same day. This is harassment, he said. Not enough for criminal charges yet, but we can file for a restraining order and start building a civil case. Keep documenting. I agreed, wired him a retainer. It felt like a lifeline, but also like I was sinking deeper into something I couldn't control. Carl didn't stop. If anything, he got bolder. One night, my floodlights snapped on, and the camera caught him walking along the fence, holding what looked like a flashlight. He shined into my backyard, slow, deliberate, like he was searching for something. The next day, I found footprints in the dirt near my patio, too big to be mine. I took photos, added them to the pile. I started sleeping with a kitchen knife under my pillow, which scared me more than Carl did. I wasn't this person, paranoid, armed, jumping at shadows. But I was becoming him. I decided to fight back, but not with fists or shouts. I remembered a trick from a podcast about petty revenge. I ordered a cheap projector, set it up in my dining room, aimed it at the window where Carl's camera watched. Every night, I played weird, looping videos, public domain cartoons, grainy nature documentaries, silent films with eerie music. Nothing illegal, just unsettling. I wanted him to wonder what the hell I was doing. I'd leave it running for hours, let the flickering light spill into his lens. I pictured him squinting at his monitor, trying to make sense of it. It worked, sort of. A few days later, I saw him outside, fiddling with his camera, adjusting the angle slightly. Not away from my house, just higher, like he was trying to see over the projector's glow. I upped the ante. I added audio, low, droning ambient tracks, just loud enough to carry across the yard. I'd watch my cameras, see his porch light flick on, see him step outside and stare. For the first time, I felt like I was getting under his skin. But Carl wasn't the type to back down. One morning, I woke to a blaring car alarm line. I ran outside, found my driver's side window smashed, glass all over the seat. Nothing was stolen, just broken for the sake of breaking. My cameras caught a figure in a hoodie, face obscured, sprinting back toward Carl's house at 4:22 a.m. I called the police again. Same officer, same shrug. No clear ID, no proof it's him. I sent the footage to my lawyer anyway. He filed for the restraining order that day, citing escalating harassment. The next night, I got a call from a block number. No voice, just heavy breathing for 10 seconds, then a click. I didn't sleep. The night after that, my backyard camera went offline. I checked the next morning. Someone had cut the wire clean through. I replaced it, hid the new one inside a birdhouse. I was spending money I didn't have, time I couldn't spare, but I couldn't stop. This wasn't about privacy anymore. It was about survival. I started noticing changes in the neighborhood. The couple across the street stopped waving. A mom pushing a stroller across to the other side when she saw me. I overheard whispers of the gas station, my address, my name, words like unstable and trouble. Carl was talking, spreading stories. I didn't know what he was saying, but I could guess. I printed flyers, kept them simple, photos of his camera, timestamp from my log, a short explanation. I slipped them into mailboxes after dark, avoiding his house. I didn't want to stoop to his level, but I needed people to know the truth. The flyers backfired. One neighbor, an older guy named Ed, knocked on my door, red-faced. "You're stirring up drama," he said. "Carl's lived here forever. You're the new guy. Maybe you're the problem." I tried to explain, showed him the photo from the package. He shook his head. walked away. I felt like I was screaming into a void. But a few others reached out quietly. A single mom, 2 houses down, a retiree who'd seen Carl's truck circling at night. They didn't want to get involved, but they believed me. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep going. Then came the dog. I didn't have pets, too much work, but the family next door had a beagle named Rusty. Sweet dog, always wagging, never barked. One morning, I heard the mom crying outside. Rusty was gone. They found him later that day, behind a dumpster at the park, poisoned. No proof it was Carl, but I remembered that blog post about the park cameras. I told the family what I knew, showed them my log. They didn't say much, just nodded, eyes hollow. I added it to my evidence, hating myself for using their grief to build my case. My lawyer called with news. The restraining order hearing was set for next month. He warned me to expect pushback. Guys like this don't go quietly, he said. He was right. That night, my power went out. Not the whole street, just my house. I checked the breaker box. Someone had flipped the main switch and jammed the lock with a nail. I fixed it, called the cops. They took a report, but I could see it in their eyes. I was the crazy one now, calling them every other day. I stopped trusting them after that. I started digging into Carl's past again, deeper this time. Found an old court record from a county an hour away. Assault charge, dropped when the witness recanted. No names matched, but the timing lined up with when he'd moved here. I sent it to my lawyer, who hired an investigator. They found more, a pattern of complaints wherever Carl lived. Noise violations, vandalism, disputes with neighbors. Always settled, always dismissed. He was slippery, always just shy of real trouble. One night, I caught him on camera again, this time with a ladder, setting up a second camera on his garage, aimed at my front door. I didn't call the police. I called my lawyer, who added it to the harassment claim. We were building a fortress of evidence now, videos, photos, logs, even a nail from the breaker box. I felt like I was winning, but it didn't feel good. I was exhausted, jumping at every noise, dreaming of green camera lights and smashed windows. Then I got a visitor. Not Carl, a woman, maybe 60, gray hair, nervous eyes. She said her name was Diane, Carl's sister-in-law from his late wife's side. She asked to come in, kept glancing at his house. I let her, locked the door behind us. She sat on my couch, hands twisting in her lap. He's done this before, she said. Not just cameras. Worse. She told me about a neighbor in Virginia, years ago, who'd crossed Carl. Anonymous threats, slashed tires, a house fire ruled accidental. The neighbor moved away, never pressed charges. Diane said Carl kept files, photos, notes, schedules, on people he didn't trust. He's got one on you, she said. I saw it. I asked where. She hesitated. His basement. Le cabinet. I don't have a key. I pressed her. Why tell me now? She looked down. Because he's getting worse. He talks about you like you're an enemy, not a neighbor. I'm scared he won't stop. She left after that, wouldn't give me her number, said she'd deny everything if I told anyone. I believed her. I added her story to my log, but it wasn't proof. Just another piece of the puzzle. The next week, someone broke into my car again. This time, they left something, a handwritten note, block letters, stop watching. I laughed, bitter. He thought I was the one obsessed. I bagged the note, sent it to my lawyer. The investigator was tailing Carl now, discreetly. Found out he'd been buying burner phones, small cameras, even zip ties from a hardware store. Nothing illegal, but it painted a picture. My lawyer filed for an emergency restraining order, citing imminent threat. The judge approved it, temporary, pending the hearing. Carl didn't react well. The day he was served, my floodlight caught him throwing a brick at my mailbox. It shattered, pieces everywhere. I didn't clean it up, left it for the police to see. They arrested him for vandalism, but he was out by morning, smirking as he mowed his lawn. I felt the walls closing in. Work was a mess. I'd lost 2 clients, couldn't focus. My savings were draining, cameras, locks, lawyer fees. I started to wonder if I should just sell the house, run. But that felt like letting him win. Then Diane came back. This time, she brought something, a flash drive. I took it from his desk, she said, voice shaking. Don't ask how. Just look at it. She was gone before I could ask more. I plugged it into my laptop, heart pounding. It was a folder labeled NW, new neighbor, I guessed. Photos of me, leaving the house, working in the dining room, even sleeping on my couch one night, taken through a crack in the blinds. There were notes too. Timestamps, habits, guesses about my life. Works late, No girlfriend, drinks alone. It was like reading my own obituary. I sent it to my lawyer, who called it goldmine. This is stalking, plain and simple, he said. We've got him. The investigator kept digging, found a storage unit Carl rented across town. No warrant yet, but they were watching it. I felt a spark of hope, but it was fragile. Carl was still out there, still watching. That night, my cameras caught him spray painting his own garage, covering the lens of his second camera. I didn't get it. Why block his own view? Unless he was planning something he didn't want recorded. The hearing was a week away when it happened. I woke to smoke, thick and acrid, seeping under my bedroom door. I grabbed my phone, ran downstairs. The kitchen was glowing, flames licking up the back wall, near the window. I called 911, grabbed a fire extinguisher, and managed to douse it before it spread. Firefighters arrived, ruled it arson. A rag soaked in gasoline, stuffed through the window's frame. My cameras were offline. Someone had cut the power line outside. I knew who. The police questioned Carl that morning. He played dumb, said he'd been asleep. No proof, no arrest. I didn't go back to the house that night. Stayed at a motel, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Diane's words echoed. He won't stop. I called my lawyer, told him I wanted to go all in, sue for everything, harassment, emotional distress, whatever stuck. He warned me it'd be a slog, but I didn't care. I was done running. The investigator got a break the next day. A traffic cam caught Carl's truck near my house the night of the fire, 1:17 a.m. Not enough for arson, but enough to tighten the screws. The hearing came, and Carl showed up, clean-shaven, in a cheap suit. He looked smaller in the courtroom, but his eyes still had that edge, like he was planning his next move. My lawyer laid it out. Cameras, photos, notes, vandalism, the flash drive. Carl's attorney, a nervous guy who kept adjusting his tie, claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that I was the one escalating, installing cameras to provoke him. The judge wasn't buying it. She granted the permanent restraining order, warned Carl to stay 500 feet away. No contact, no cameras. I felt a weight lift, but it wasn't over. Carl moved out a week later. Not far, just across town, still too close. I heard he'd rented an apartment, sold his house to a young couple who waved at me like nothing had happened. I kept my cameras up, checked the locks every night. The lawsuit was still pending, dragging through motions and delays. My lawyer was optimistic, said the flash drive alone could get us a settlement, maybe 6 figures. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted peace. Then I got a letter. No return address, postmarked from Raleigh. Inside was a single sentence, typed, "You think you're safe now." I called the police, my lawyer, even Diane. She didn't answer. I drove by Carl's old house, saw the new owners planting flowers. I wanted to warn them, but what could I say? I went home, checked my cameras. One was offline again. I fixed it, added another, higher, hidden in the gutter. I wasn't sleeping anymore, just dozing in fragments, coffee, and adrenaline keeping me upright. The investigator called last week. They'd gotten into Carl's storage unit, found more drives, more photos, not just of me. Neighbors, strangers, even kids at the park. He'd been watching everyone, years of it, labeled, organized. The police were building a bigger case now, stalking, maybe worse. They wouldn't tell me more. I didn't ask. I sat in my dining room, blinds open for the first time in months, staring at the empty house next door. The lawsuit's still going, but it feels distant, like someone else's fight. I'm still here, still checking shadows, still writing in my log. I don't know if I'll ever feel safe again, but I know one thing. I didn't let him win. Not yet. What do you think of this wild story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if it kept you hooked, and subscribe for more crazy tales like this one.